today's kind of a bummer news day. First, yesterday, the Senate voted down a measure that would have resulted in the defunding of Planned Parenthood and cutting off abortion subsidies through our healthcare plan. It would have also kind of completely repealed Obamacare. And so that was sort of disappointing to see how pro-life progress on these healthcare questions isn't happening. The other question that is really sad is basically the looming death of Charlie Gard, the little baby from the United Kingdom, who, for those of you who don't remember his story entirely, Charlie was this little boy who's about only 2 weeks older than my daughter. He was born in August of 2016, and he suffered from a very serious illness that resulted in some brain injury. He's very, very sick and has only been breathing through a ventilator. His parents had learned of an experimental medication option that was available in the United States, and they were going to pay. They raised the money privately themselves. They raised over £1 million, British pounds, to fly Charlie to the United States to get this experimental treatment that had been used for similar diseases but hadn't been used on his disease. Most people thought that this medication didn't have a great chance of succeeding, but, these are parents dealing with a deathly ill baby, and they were willing to try pretty much anything. The problem was that the hospital at which he was staying in the United Kingdom, and for those of you who don't know, in the United Kingdom, the hospitals are all owned by the government. The United Kingdom has government-run healthcare, entirely government-run healthcare. The government, everyone has insurance through the government, and the government controls all the hospitals. The hospital at which he was staying basically said, no, we are not going to allow you to pursue this treatment. The parents said, well, it doesn't have to involve you. We've raised this money privately. We just want to fly our kid out there. And the hospital has refused to let the parents do this. Charlie's parents tried to take this to court, and the legal process got so drawn out, with the courts repeatedly denying Charlie's parents the ability to go to the United States to try out this treatment, that eventually the parents realized that things were so advanced that basically his disease had advanced to such an extent that the parents sort of decided at this point any kind of experimental treatment was no longer worthwhile. And as a result, they have decided to remove the ventilator and allow nature to take its course, which is a completely legitimate thing for his parents to choose from any sort of traditional bioethics or medical ethics or Christian or medical ethics perspective. The removal of extraordinary methods of treatment is different from actively killing someone or depriving someone of basic means of treatment like food and water. And essentially, I think it's not too much to say that the courts in the United Kingdom and the government, the British government, which runs this hospital, they effectively killed this child. They prevented this child from getting... I mean, certainly this child would more than likely have died from this disease anyway. But the government basically prevented these parents from pursuing a treatment that might have had some chance of success. And so much of it was stacked against this baby from the very outset. Even in their legal process, his government-appointed guardian was actually a euthanasia activist. The government-appointed lawyer, this is a story from LifeSite News, the government-appointed lawyer who supposedly speaks for Charlie Gard in court is the chairman of Compassion in Dying, an end-of-life advocacy group with a sister organization that supports assisted suicide. Victoria Butler Cole is listed as Compassion in Dying's chairman on its website and in its financial documents. And Compassion in Dying links to its sister organization, Dignity in Dying, formerly called the Voluntary Euthanasia Society. So Charlie's own lawyer, who's appointed to advocate for him, was kind of compromised. The hospital, basically the attitude that the hospital and its lawyers took, and that the judges in the United Kingdom agreed to, was something that I think pro-lifers need to really understand. There's this concept called a functional view of human life, which is opposed to a kind of, I'll call it, inherent dignity, or a dignity-based view of human life. Let me explain these two. The functional view of human life sort of views human beings as having value only in proportion to what they can do. Okay? You have value if you are able to talk and engage in abstract reasoning and think and whatnot. If you are able to engage in what people like Ronald Dworkin and Peter Singer call creative activities. Ronald Dworkin and Peter Singer are these very high-level legal and medical ethicists who have incredibly crazy ideas about assisted suicide, euthanasia, even infanticide. Peter Singer believes that you should be able to have basically a 6-month trial run with your baby, during which time you can kill it if you don't want it. So basically, they view human life as having value only insofar as people can do things. The other viewpoint, which Judaism and Christianity kind of introduced to the world in a really profound way, and to a certain extent maybe the philosophy of Plato and Aristotle, but more so Christianity, I think, basically says that human beings have value in and of themselves. That it's not because of your capacity for what you can do, but because you belong to this species that has that capacity. Basically, you have value because you're a member of the human family, because you are one of us, because we are social beings who are entirely dependent upon one another. We're even dependent upon babies. If you don't believe that we're dependent upon babies and unborn children, look at our social welfare system. I mean, it's designed for lots of taxpayers and few people receiving benefits. Essentially, the courts in the United Kingdom believe Charlie's life had no value because he suffered brain damage, and thus his continued existence would be unacceptable because he can't do things. We think he had value because he was a human being, and that's why we believe his parents should have had the right to provide him with the treatment that they believed he needed.